Indian Subcontinent. History of India. Part 1. What do you know about the history of India? See History of India, Ancient India and Indian History redirect here. According to consensus in modern genetics, anatomically modern humans first arrived on the Indian subcontinent from Africa between 73,000 and 55,000 years ago. However, the earliest known human remains in South Asia date to 30,000 years ago. Sedentariness, which involves the transition from foraging to farming and pastoralism, began in South Asia around 7000 BCE. At the site of Mayagar, its presence can be documented, with evidence of domestication of wheat and barley, rapidly followed by that of goats, sheep, and cattle. By 4500 BC, such settled life had increasingly spread and began to gradually evolve into the Indus Valley civilization, which was contemporaneous with ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. This civilization flourished between 2500 BCE and 1900 BCE in present-day Pakistan and northwestern India, and was noted for its urban planning, baked brick houses, elaborate drainage, and water supply. Early on in the second millennium BC, persistent drought caused the population of the Indus Valley to scatter from large urban centers to villages. Around the same time, Indo-Aryan tribes moved into the Punjab from Central Asia in several waves of migration. The Vedic period was marked by the composition of their large collections of hymns called Vedas. Their Varna system, which evolved into the caste system, consisted of a hierarchy of priests, warriors, free peasants, and servants. The pastoral and nomadic Indo-Aryans spread from the Punjab into the Gangetic Plain, large swaths of which they deforested for agriculture. The composition of Vedic texts ended around 600 BC, when a new interregional culture arose. Then, small chieftaincies were consolidated into larger states. A second urbanization took place, which came with the rise of new ascetic movements and religious concepts in Greater Magadha, including the rise of Jainism and Buddhism. These opposed the growing influence of Brahmanism and the primacy of rituals, often presided by Brahmin priests, that had come to be associated with Vedic religion. In response to the success of these movements, the latter was synthesized with the pre-existing religious cultures of the subcontinent, giving rise to Hinduism. Chandragupta Maurya, with the guidance of Acharya Chanakya, succeeded in overthrowing the Nanda Empire and established the first great empire in ancient India, the Maurya Empire. Most of the Indian subcontinent was conquered by the Maurya Empire during the 4th and 3rd centuries BCE. From the 3rd century BCE onwards, Prakrit and Pali literature in the north and Tamil Sangam literature in southern India started to flourish. Wootz steel originated in South India in the 3rd century BCE and was exported. The Maurya Empire would collapse in 185 BCE on the assassination of the then Emperor Brihadratha by his general Pushyamitra Shunga. Shunga would go on to form the Shunga Empire in the north and northeast of the subcontinent, while the Greco-Bactrian kingdom would claim the northwest and found the Indo-Greek kingdom. Various parts of India were ruled by numerous dynasties, including the Gupta Empire in the 4th-6th centuries c. This period, witnessing a Hindu religious and intellectual resurgence, is known as the Classical or Golden Age of India. During this time, aspects of Indian civilization, administration, culture, and religion spread to much of Asia. Kingdoms in southern India had maritime business links with the Middle East and the Mediterranean. Indian cultural influence spread over many parts of Southeast Asia, which led to the establishment of Indianized kingdoms in the region, forming the Greater India. The most significant event between the 7th and 11th century was the tripartite struggle centered on Kannauj that lasted for more than 2 centuries between the Pala Empire, Rashtrakuta Empire, and Gurjara Pratihara Empire. Southern India saw the rise of multiple imperial powers from the middle of the 5th century, most notably the Chalukya, Chola, Pallava, Chera, Pandyan, and Western Chalukya empires. The Chola dynasty conquered southern India and successfully invaded parts of Southeast Asia, Sri Lanka, the Maldives, and Bengal in the 11th century. In the early medieval period, Indian mathematics, including Hindu numerals, influenced the development of mathematics and astronomy in the Arab world, including the creation of the Hindu-Arabic numeral system. Islamic conquests made limited inroads into modern Afghanistan and Sindh as early as the 8th century, followed by the invasions of Mahmud Ghazni. The Delhi Sultanate was founded in 1206 CE by Central Asian Turks who ruled a major part of the northern Indian subcontinent in the early 14th century, but declined in the late 14th century and saw the advent of the Deccan Sultanates. The wealthy Bengal Sultanate also emerged as a major power, lasting over 3 centuries. This period also saw the emergence of several powerful Hindu states, notably the Vijayanagara Empire and Rajput states, such as Mewar. The 15th century saw the advent of Sikhism. The early modern period began in the 16th century, when the Mughal Empire conquered most of the Indian subcontinent, signaling the proto-industrialization, becoming the biggest global economy and manufacturing power, with a nominal GDP that valued a quarter of world GDP, superior to that of Europe. The Mughals suffered a gradual decline in the early 18th century, which provided opportunities for the Marathas, Sikhs, Mysoreans, Nizams, and Nawabs of Bengal to exercise control over large regions of the Indian subcontinent. From the mid-18th century to the mid-19th century, large regions of India were gradually annexed by the East India Company, a chartered company acting as a sovereign power on behalf of the British government. Dissatisfaction with company rule in India led to the Indian Rebellion of 1857, which rocked parts of North and Central India and led to the dissolution of the company. India was afterwards ruled directly by the British Crown in the British Raj. After World War I, a nationwide struggle for independence was launched by the Indian National Congress, led by Mahatma Gandhi, notable for nonviolence. Later, the All India Muslim League would advocate for a separate Muslim-majority nation-state. The British Indian Empire was partitioned in August 1947 into the Dominion of India and Dominion of Pakistan, each gaining its independence. Hominin expansion from Africa is estimated to have reached the Indian subcontinent approximately 2 million years ago, and possibly as early as 2.2 million years before the present. This dating is based on the known presence of Homo erectus in Indonesia by 1.8 million years before the present, and in East Asia by 1.36 million years before present, as well as the discovery of stone tools at Rewat in the Sone River Valley of the Pabi Hills region, Pakistan. Although some older discoveries have been claimed, the suggested dates, based on the dating of fluvial sediments, have not been independently verified. The oldest hominin fossil remains in the Indian subcontinent are those of Homo erectus or Homo heidelbergensis from the Narmada Valley in central India, and are dated to approximately 500,000 years ago. Older fossil finds have been claimed, but are considered unreliable. Reviews of archaeological evidence have suggested that occupation of the Indian subcontinent by hominids was sporadic until approximately 700,000 years ago, and was geographically widespread by approximately 250,000 years before the present, from which point onward, archaeological evidence of proto-human presence is widely mentioned. According to a historical demographer of South Asia, Tim Dyson, modern human beings, Homo sapiens, originated in Africa. Then, intermittently, sometime between 60,000 and 80,000 years ago, tiny groups of them began to enter the northwest of the Indian subcontinent. It seems likely that initially they came by way of the coast. It is virtually certain that there were Homo sapiens in the subcontinent 55,000 years ago, even though the earliest fossils that have been found of them date to only about 30,000 years before the present. According to Michael D. Petraglia and Bridget Alchin, Y chromosome and Mount DNA data support the colonization of South Asia by modern humans originating in Africa. Coalescence dates for most non-European populations average to between 73-55 ca. And according to historian of South Asia, Michael H. Fisher, scholars estimate that the first successful expansion of the Homo sapiens range beyond Africa and across the Arabian Peninsula occurred from as early as 80,000 years ago to as late as 40,000 years ago. Although there may have been prior unsuccessful emigrations, some of their descendants extended the human range ever further in each generation, spreading into each habitable land they encountered. One human channel was along the warm and productive coastal lands of the Persian Gulf and northern Indian Ocean. Eventually, various bands entered India between 75,000 years ago and 35,000 years ago. Archaeological evidence has been interpreted to suggest the presence of anatomically modern humans in the Indian subcontinent 78,000, 74,000 years ago, although this interpretation is disputed. The occupation of South Asia by modern humans, over a long time, initially in varying forms of isolation as hunter-gatherers, has turned it into a highly diverse one, second only to Africa in human genetic diversity. According to Tim Dyson, genetic research has contributed to knowledge of the prehistory of the subcontinent's people in other respects. In particular, the level of genetic diversity in the region is extremely high. Indeed, only Africa's population is genetically more diverse. Related to this, there is strong evidence of founder events in the subcontinent. By this is meant circumstances where a subgroup, such as a tribe, derives from a tiny number of original individuals. Further, compared to most world regions, the subcontinent's people are relatively distinct in having practiced comparatively high levels of endogamy. Settled life emerged on the subcontinent in the western margins of the Indus River alluvium approximately 9,000 years ago. evolving gradually into the Indus Valley civilization of the 3rd millennium BCE, according to Tim Dyson. By 7,000 years ago, agriculture was firmly established in Balochistan, and, over the next 2,000 years, the practice of farming slowly spread eastwards into the Indus Valley. And according to Michael Fisher, the earliest discovered instance of well-established, settled agricultural society is at Mayagar in the hills between the Balan Pass and the Indus Plain. From as early as 7,000 BC, communities there started investing increased labor in preparing the land and selecting, planting, tending, and harvesting particular grain-producing plants. They also domesticated animals, including sheep, goats, pigs, and oxen. Castrating oxen, for instance, turned them from mainly meat sources into domesticated draft animals as well. The Bronze Age in the Indian subcontinent began around 3300 BCE. Along with ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley region was one of 3 early cradles of civilization of the Old World. Of the 3, the Indus Valley civilization was the most expansive, and at its peak may have had a population of over 5 million. The civilization was primarily centered in modern-day Pakistan, in the Indus River Basin, and secondarily in the Ghaggar-Hakra River Basin in eastern Pakistan and northwestern India. The mature Indus civilization flourished from about 2600 to 1900 BC, marking the beginning of urban civilization on the Indian subcontinent. The civilization included cities such as Harappa, Ganwarapal, and Mohenjo-Daro in modern-day Pakistan, and Dhalavira, Kalabang, Rakhigarhi, and Lothal in modern-day India. Inhabitants of the ancient Indus River Valley, the Harappans, developed new techniques in metallurgy and handicraft, and produced copper, bronze, lead, and tin. The civilization is noted for its cities built of brick, roadside drainage system, and multi-storied houses, and is thought to have had some kind of municipal organization. Civilization also developed Indus script, which is presently undeciphered. This is the reason why Harappan language is not directly attested, and its affiliation uncertain. A relationship or membership of the Dravidian or Alamo-Dravidian language family is proposed by some scholars. 3 stamp seals and their impressions bearing Indus script characters alongside animals, unicorn, bull, and elephant, Gimit Museum. After the collapse of Indus Valley civilization, the inhabitants of the Indus Valley civilization migrated from the river valleys of Indus and Ghaggar-Hakra towards the Himalayan foothills of Ganga-Yamuna Basin. During 2nd millennium BC, ochre-colored pottery culture was in Ganga-Yamuna Doab region. These were rural settlement with agriculture and hunting. They were using copper tools such as axes, spears, arrows, and swords. The people had domesticated cattle, goats, sheep, horses, pigs, and dogs. The site gained attention for its Bronze Age solid disc wheel carts, found in 2018, which were interpreted by some as horse-pulled chariots. Soon we will publish Episode 2. Thank you for watching.